What if I told you the most powerful natural painkiller might be growing right outside your door, and you've walked past it your entire life without even noticing? Before we go any further, do yourself a favor. Subscribe right now. Because the information you're about to hear, most people never do. Share this with someone you care about too, because once you see this, you can't unsee it. For centuries, humans relied on nature for healing, not chemicals, not synthetic pills. Nature, plants, roots, leaves, some of them so effective they were considered sacred. But then something changed. Some knowledge didn't just fade away, it disappeared. And today, one of the most overlooked natural painkillers on Earth is still here, growing in fields, cracks in sidewalks, abandoned land, dismissed as a useless weed. But it's not useless. Not even close. In fact, in some parts of the world, it was once used as a frontline remedy for pain, inflammation, even injuries that would normally require strong medication. So why don't you hear about it? Why wasn't this passed down to you? Let's go back. Long before modern medicine, ancient healers documented everything. Every plant had a purpose, every leaf told a story, and among them was a plant so common, so resilient, it grew almost anywhere. Yet its power was anything but ordinary. People would crush its leaves, extract its essence, and apply it directly to wounds, or drink it in carefully prepared forms. Reports described rapid relief, pain dulling within minutes, swelling reduced, and recovery accelerated. It wasn't magic, it was chemistry. Natural chemistry. Compounds inside this plant interact with the body in ways that modern science is only beginning to fully understand. Anti-inflammatory agents, mild analgesic properties, even antimicrobial effects. In simple terms, it doesn't just mask pain, it helps your body deal with the cause. But here's where things start to get strange. As pharmaceutical industries expanded, natural remedies slowly lost their place. Not because they stopped working, but because they couldn't be owned. Think about that. A plant that grows everywhere, it can't be patented. It can't be controlled. And if people rely on something free, something accessible, there's no profit in it. So over time, these remedies were labeled as old-fashioned, unproven, or simply ignored. Generations grew up without learning what their ancestors once knew by heart. And this plant? Well, it became just another weed. Stepped on, pulled out, thrown away. But in some rural communities, the knowledge survived. Quietly, passed from elders to those willing to listen. If someone got injured, this plant was used. If there was swelling, this plant was used. If pain lingered, this plant was used. No pharmacy, no prescription, just something growing in the wild. Now imagine this. You've been told your whole life that relief comes from a bottle. But what if part of the truth was left out? What if something simple was intentionally overlooked? Because here's the reality. Modern medicine is powerful, no doubt. But that doesn't mean everything natural is ineffective. In fact, many modern drugs are based on compounds originally discovered in plants. Let that sink in. The difference? Those compounds are isolated, modified, packaged, and sold. But the original source? Often forgotten. And this is where curiosity becomes dangerous. Because once you start asking questions like, why was this never taught in school? And why don't we hear about these plants in mainstream conversations? Why is something so accessible, so unknown? You begin to realize there's a gap between what exists and what people are told. Now let's talk about the plant itself. You've seen it. Almost everyone has. It grows low to the ground, spreading quietly, blending into its surroundings. Most people don't give it a second glance. Some even try to get rid of it. But hidden within those leaves is a combination of natural compounds that can help reduce discomfort, calm inflammation, and support healing. Some studies suggest its effectiveness comes from bioactive molecules that interact with pain receptors and inflammatory pathways in the body. In simpler terms, it helps your body relax its response to injury. And here's the part that's hard to ignore. People who still use it swear by it. Not because someone told them to, but because they've seen it work again and again. Now, this doesn't mean you should replace professional medical advice or treatment, but it does raise an important question. Why aren't we more aware of options like this? Why is knowledge about nature treated like a mystery when it used to be common sense? And maybe the most important question of all, what else has been overlooked? Because this isn't just about one plant. It's about a pattern, a slow shift away from self-reliance toward dependence. And the more you look into it, the more you start to see it everywhere. Forgotten remedies, ignored solutions, things that used to matter, quietly pushed aside. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. In recent years, there's been a growing movement. People rediscovering these plants, studying them again, testing their properties with modern tools. And guess what? Some of the results are confirming what ancient knowledge already claimed. But it's happening slowly, quietly, almost like it's not meant to go mainstream too fast. Because if everyone suddenly realized that powerful natural options exist all around them, it would change the way people think about health, about control, about what they really need. So the next time you see a weed growing in the cracks of a sidewalk, ask yourself, is it really useless? Or is it something you were never taught to understand? And if this is just one example, how many more are out there, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be rediscovered? If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of most people. Subscribe, because what we're uncovering here goes deeper than you think, and the next part will reveal exactly what this plant is, how it's used, and why it might be one of the most underestimated natural pain relievers on Earth. And now, let's uncover what they never fully explained. The plant we're talking about is known as Plantago major, not the banana-looking fruit you're thinking of. This is something entirely different. This is the plant you probably stepped on without realizing, the one that grows low to the ground with wide green leaves and thin stalks rising from the center. It's everywhere. Sidewalk cracks, road edges, empty fields, even in places where nothing else seems to survive. And yet, almost no one stops to ask what it is. For centuries, this plant wasn't ignored. It was respected. In fact, ancient European and Asian traditions treated it as a go-to remedy for pain and inflammation. Some even called it nature's bandage. Because when something went wrong, cuts, stings, swelling, aches, this was one of the first things people reached for. They didn't need a label. They didn't need a prescription. They just knew. But here's where it gets fascinating. Inside these leaves are compounds like aucubin, flavonoids, and tannins, natural chemicals that have been studied for their anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, and mild analgesic effects. In plain terms, this plant doesn't just sit there looking green. It actively interacts with your body, helping calm irritation, helping reduce swelling, helping your body recover faster. And one of the simplest ways it was used might surprise you. People would pick the leaves, crush them in their hands, and apply them directly to the skin. No processing, no lab, just immediate use. And reports from both historical records and modern herbalists say the same thing. Relief, sometimes within minutes. Now think about that. Something growing freely, used instantly with real effects. And yet, you were never told. Why? Because knowledge like this doesn't scale the way industries do. You can't package a leaf growing on every corner. You can't build a global system around something people can access for free. So instead, the narrative shifted. These plants became weeds, unimportant, irrelevant. And over time, people stopped looking down. They stopped noticing what was right beneath them. But here's something even more interesting. In recent years, scientists have started revisiting plants like Plantago major, analyzing them under modern research standards. And what they're finding is raising eyebrows. Studies suggest antimicrobial activity against certain bacteria, anti-inflammatory responses that support the body's natural healing process, even potential benefits for skin irritation and minor wounds. In other words, ancient knowledge wasn't guessing. It was observing, testing through experience, refining over generations. And now, science is slowly catching up. But here's the part most people never think about. Even if this information becomes widely known, how many people will actually trust it? Because we've been conditioned to believe that effectiveness must come in a bottle, that relief must be prescribed, that nature is secondary, not primary. And breaking that belief, that's not easy, but once it starts to crack, everything changes. You begin to see the world differently. You start questioning more. You start noticing things you ignored before, like the plants under your feet, the ones growing without permission, without care, without attention, yet still surviving, still offering something. Now, let's talk about how this plant was traditionally used beyond just topical application. In some cultures, the leaves were steeped in hot water to create a kind of infusion. Others would dry it and prepare it in different forms. And while methods varied, the intention was always the same. Use what nature provides. Work with the body, not against it. But here's where we need to be precise. This doesn't mean every claim you hear is automatically true, and it doesn't mean you should blindly replace modern treatments. What it does mean is that there's more to the story than most people realize, a missing layer of knowledge, a forgotten connection. And when you rediscover that connection, something shifts. You feel less dependent, more aware, more in control. And that's powerful. Because knowledge, real knowledge, isn't just information, it's leverage. And once you have it, you start to see why it might not always be emphasized. Now imagine this scenario. Two people experience the same minor pain. One reaches for something they bought. The other steps outside, picks a leaf, and uses it. Same goal, different worlds. One relies on systems. The other relies on awareness. And the gap between those two, that's where this entire conversation lives. But here's the twist. Most people won't act on this, even after hearing it, even after seeing the evidence. Because awareness alone isn't enough. It requires curiosity, willingness to explore, to question, to test. And not everyone is ready for that, which is why this kind of knowledge stays on the edges, passed quietly, shared selectively. Almost like a hidden layer of reality, sitting right in front of everyone. Now here's something I want you to think about carefully. If one of the most useful natural pain-relieving plants has been overlooked for so long, what else has been dismissed? What other weeds? What other old remedies? What other pieces of knowledge are waiting to be rediscovered? Because this isn't just about one plant, it's about perspective. And once that shifts, you don't go back. You start seeing value where others see nothing. You start asking questions others never think to ask. And that's where things get interesting. If you're still here, you're not watching this by accident. Subscribe, because in the next part, we're going deeper. How to correctly identify this plant, the biggest mistakes people make when using it, and the hidden risks no one talks about. Now we're stepping into the part most people never reach. Because this is where curiosity turns into awareness. Knowing a plant exists is one thing. Recognizing it in the real world, that's something else entirely. Because here's the truth. If you can't identify it correctly, everything we've talked about means nothing. And this is where mistakes happen. The plant we've been uncovering, Plantago major, hides in plain sight. It doesn't stand tall. It doesn't demand attention. It blends in so well that most people overlook it completely. But once you know what to look for, you'll start seeing it everywhere. It grows low to the ground in a circular pattern, almost like a quiet green star spreading outward. The leaves are broad, smooth and slightly rubbery to the touch, with visible veins running from the base all the way to the tip, like natural lines guiding your eye. In the center, thin stalks rise upward, carrying tiny clustered seeds. Not bright, not flashy, but unmistakable once you truly see it. And that's the first shift. Because the moment you recognize it, something clicks. You realize this plant has been around you the entire time, untouched, ignored, waiting. But here's where you need to be careful. Not every plant that looks similar is the same, and this is where blind curiosity can become dangerous. There are lookalike plants, some harmless, some not. If someone rushes in, picks the wrong leaf, and assumes it's safe, that's where problems begin. This is why ancient knowledge wasn't just about what to use, but how to recognize it correctly. Details mattered. Shape, texture, growth pattern, even location. Because nature doesn't label things for you. You have to learn its language, and once you do, the world opens in a way most people never experience. Now let's talk about the biggest mistake people make. They hear something like this, get excited, and immediately try to use it without understanding context. That's not awareness, that's imitation. And imitation without knowledge, that's risk. Even with something as common as Plantago major, there are factors most people never consider. Where did it grow? Was the soil clean or contaminated? Was it near a road filled with pollution? Was it exposed to chemicals, pesticides, or waste? Because here's the hidden reality. Just because something is natural doesn't mean it's automatically safe. Environment changes everything. A plant growing in clean, untouched land is very different from one growing in a polluted urban space. Same species, completely different quality, and no one tells you that. This is why traditional knowledge always included awareness of surroundings. It wasn't just use the plant, it was understand where it comes from. Now here's another layer people rarely talk about. Even natural compounds can affect people differently. One person might experience relief. Another might feel nothing. Someone else might have a mild reaction. Because every body is different. Different sensitivities, different responses. And ignoring that leads to misunderstanding. This is why real knowledge is never absolute. It's observational, adaptive, context-based. Something modern conversations often oversimplify. Now let's go deeper. Because there's a reason this plant earned the reputation it did. When used correctly, in the right conditions, people historically relied on it for quick, external relief, especially for minor irritations, bites, and surface-level discomfort. Crushing the leaf releases its internal compounds. Applying it allows direct interaction with the affected area. Simple, direct, effective, within its scope. But here's the key phrase most people miss: within its scope. This is not a miracle cure. It's not a replacement for serious medical treatment, and anyone who presents it that way is distorting reality. But that doesn't make it useless. It makes it misunderstood. Because in a world where everything is pushed to extremes, either this cures everything or this does nothing, the truth sits in the middle. And the middle is where real power is. Now here's where the story shifts again. Because once you understand how to identify it, where it grows, and how it's traditionally used, a new question emerges. Why did we stop learning these things? Not just this plant, all of it. Why did knowledge of the natural world become something extra instead of something essential? Because at one point in history, this wasn't optional. It was survival. People knew what to eat, what to use, what to avoid, because their lives depended on it. Now, most people can't identify 5 useful plants around them. That's not an accident. That's a shift, a gradual disconnection from the environment. And when that connection fades, dependence grows. Dependence on systems, on products, on things outside of your immediate awareness. And again, this isn't about rejecting modern advancements. It's about recognizing what was left behind. Because when you combine both, that's where true understanding lives. Now imagine this. You walk outside tomorrow. Same streets, same ground, same surroundings, but this time, you see differently. You notice what you didn't before. You recognize patterns. You question things. That shift alone changes everything. Because awareness compounds. Once you start seeing one thing, you start seeing more. And suddenly, the world doesn't feel as simple as it used to. It feels layered, hidden, full of things most people pass by without a second thought. And that's exactly where the real discoveries are. Hidden in plain sight, right in front of everyone, but only visible to those who choose to look. If you've made it all the way here, you're already part of a small percentage of people willing to question what they've been told. Subscribe, like, and share this with someone who needs to see it, because most people will never even realize what's growing right beneath their feet. And remember, this wasn't just about a plant. It was about what happens when knowledge disappears and what it takes to bring it back.